everybody. I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports. Well, friends, Halloween has come and gone, and November has arrived, but Nightmare Month this year isn't over just yet. Yeah, I know I've been falling behind and getting sidetracked by certain things. Still, I really want this spooky marathon to end on a high note. So, let's talk about the stop-motion animation studio, Laika. For those who don't remember, Laika has given us such really amazing films, from Henry Selick's amazing Coraline to Travis Knight's Kubo and the Two Strings. Also, I think The Box Trolls has got to be one of their most underrated, while Missing Link isn't technically my favorite out of these films. By the way, while I hear that Laika will be giving us a new film called Wildwood next year, there's still one film from them that I still have not blogged yet. And believe me, I've been wanting to share my thoughts on it for years. So, let's get started. Released on August 17th, 2012, the movie is Paranorman. So, on for the plot of the movie. Young Norman Babcock has the ability to speak with the dead, and he often prefers their company to that of the living. One day, Norman receives word from his strange uncle Prendergast that a centuries-old witch's curse on their town is real and is about to come true, and that only Norman can stop it. When zombies rise from their graves, Norman must summon all his courage and compassion and push his paranormal abilities to the limit to save his fellow townspeople. So, what do I think of this movie? Well, while the movie itself is PG, it's not really a kids' movie due to it featuring crude humor and adult profanity. And I love every bit of it. In fact, it's one of my favorite animated Halloween films of all time. But in order to explain what I mean, let's head over to Mustang Notes. The idea for Paranorman came from Chris Butler, who, realizing that zombie films often contained a degree of social commentary, thought that making such a movie for kids would help express the challenges kids face while growing up. Joining Butler in the director's chair would be Sam Feld, who, in the past, directed Flushed Away, The Tale of Despero, and last year directed Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget. Production of the film took place at Laika's studio in Hillsboro, Oregon. The film was in production for 3 years, with the animation stage of production lasting for about 2 years and beginning in late 2009. Rather than using traditional 3D format cameras, the studio had 60 Canon EOS 5D Mark II DSLR cameras to film the entire movie. Paranorman is the first ever stop-motion film to use full-color 3D printers for replacement animation. Laika's previous film, Coraline, had pioneered and popularized the use of black and white 3D printers, which sped up puppet production considerably and allowed the team to make the large number of puppet faces required for the film. After Paranorman was released, it received generally positive reviews from critics, who praised its animation, script, entertainment value, and its humor, and it was a modest box office success, earning about $107 million worldwide against its budget of $60 million. Now, what are my thoughts on the animation? Well, in my opinion, the stop-motion animation is fantastic. To me, not only is it a huge step up from Coraline, but it's almost reminiscent to Tim Burton's style due to the macabre featured in this movie. Plus, I think the character movements are really smooth, along with their facial animation, and I think the computer animated elements are really good too, especially with how the witch's ghost is animated. As for the story, well, I like the fact that it was inspired by Chris Butler and Sam Fell's love for classic horror films and Amblin productions from the 1980s. Also, I've heard that several people on the internet have been comparing this movie to Disney's Hocus Pocus and M. Night Shyamalan's The Sixth Sense. And while I do see where they're coming from, I kind of see the movie as a mix between Tamara, Carrie, Night of the Living Dead, and Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost. Plus, while watching Paranorman, I've noticed a few horror Easter eggs, like Norman's cell phone tone being John Carpenter's Halloween theme, and the scene where Neil wears a hockey mask, which almost looks like Jason Voorhees' mask from the Friday the 13th films. And that's basically all I got for Mustang notes. So let's move on to the characters and their voice actors. For the voice of Norman Babcock, they hired Cody Smit-McPhee, who got to be in Let Me In, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and the 2022 Elvis movie, which I still need to blog if I can find a collaborator to help me. Anyway, Norman is an 11-year-old boy who has the ability to see and speak to the dead, which was inherited from his mother's side of the family, the Prendergasts. Everyone else does not believe him, including his parents, and some people bully him for it. But he tries to not let it bug him. In my opinion, Norman is a pretty relatable character, and like I said in my past videos, we outcasts must stick together. Plus, I find it interesting that Norman enjoys watching zombie films with his grandma's ghost, and that his bedroom is entirely zombie themed. Plus, I thought Norman was very brave while confronting the mob of neurotic grown-ups and later his ancestor Aggie. Next we have Norman's sister, Courtney, voiced by Anna Kendrick, best known from the Pitch Perfect films, DreamWorks Trolls franchise, the infamous Twilight Saga, 2014's Into the Woods, and the 2019 Disney Plus Christmas movie, Noelle. Courtney is a cheerleader who acts stereotypically snobbish and mean-spirited most of the time. She resents Norman, and when he says that he can see the dead, she goes out of her way to prove that he's a liar. However, during the night of the 300th anniversary of the witch's hanging, she puts aside her differences and stands up for her brother, because even though she acts like she hates him, she loves Norman with all her heart. Next we come to Norman's best friend, Neil Down, voiced by Tucker Alberzy, who got to be in 2 of the Air Buddies films and 2017's Monster Trucks. You know, I really like this kid. Yeah, he's eccentric, but he is friendly, and he's rather cheery for someone in his position of being constantly bullied for various reasons. Plus, I like that he's one of the few characters who actually accepts Norman's gift with almost no question. Also to note, ever since I saw this movie back in 2012, I felt that something about Neil made me think of Carl from Jimmy Neutron and Pence from the Kingdom Hearts games. Next we come to Neil's brother, Mitch, voiced by Casey Affleck, whom I only remember from last year's Oppenheimer movie. This guy acts as the unaware target of Courtney's attraction. In my opinion, he's not that smart, but he does make up for it with his impressive muscular form and his driving skills. In other words, he's passionate about weightlifting and the condition of his van. Also to note, Mitch is the very first gay character whom I've ever seen in an animated feature. Next we come to Alvin Grayson, voiced by Christopher Mintz-Plasse, whom was in the Troll films with Anna Kendrick, along with How to Train Your Dragon. Alvin is the school bully who is shown picking on other students, mostly Norman. And he puts crude, unstylized graffiti on lockers and bathroom walls. Plus, while he is quick to anger and resort to violence, Alvin has an interest in dancing. Our next character is Norman's great uncle, George Prendergast, voiced by the brilliant John Goodman. I find this guy to be really bizarre, eccentric, and sickly, and every year, he would read the story of Sleeping Beauty at the witch's grave, keeping her asleep for another year. Unfortunately, while planning to make Norman understand, Prendergast tragically dies from a heart attack, but thankfully, he was able to warn Norman in the school's bathroom, and he tells him what he needs to do to stop the witch's curse. Another character to talk about is Judge Nathaniel Hopkins, voiced by Bernard Hill, whom I remember from James Cameron's Titanic and A Midsummer Night's Dream from 1999. In his mortal life, he and several others were afraid of Agatha Prendergast, and he sentenced her to death for witchcraft when she only spoke to the dead. 300 years later, Hopkins and the other Puritans rise from the dead as zombies and stalk Norman. Later, after Norman finds out the truth about Aggie, Hopkins admits his guilt and asks for Norman's help to make up for what they did. Finally, we come to the film's main villain and Norman's ancestor, Agatha Prendergast, voiced by Jodelle Ferland, whom was in Silent Hill, The Cabin in the Woods, and the third Twilight movie. To me, Agatha is one of several villains who I deeply feel sorry for. While she was initially introduced as an evil and malevolent witch, she was actually only an innocent little girl with a sweet, modest demeanor. However, when the judge and his underlings accused her of witchcraft, Aggie's fear and uncertainty gave way to pure hatred and rage, unleashing her power on them. She feels that those who have wronged her deserve the same, and she refuses to see her own wrongs, even when Norman is telling them to her. In the end, after Norman reaches out to her, Aggie learns how to let go of her pain and passes over to the next world, hoping to reunite with her mother again. Other voice actors in the film include Jeff Garlin and Leslie Mann as Norman's parents, Sandra and Perry, the late Elaine Strict as Norman's grandma, Tempest Bledsoe as Sheriff Hooper, and Alex Borstein as the drama teacher, Mrs. Margot Hensher. And now for my final words. Overall, Paranorman is an excellent film to come from Laika. The story is very engaging, it has a good moral, there's a great twist dealing with one of the characters, as well as a heartwarming ending, and though some are a bit stereotypical, the characters are very memorable. However, I must re-warn you that this is not entirely a family film. There's some adult language, crude humor, and there are a lot of moments that may be too scary for younger kids. So, if you plan on having your kids watch this movie, make sure you watch it with them. And don't worry, you'll all have a great time. I give this movie a 92% out of 100. Well, that about wraps it up for 2024's Nightmare Month. Be sure to join me for my next blog, Mustang Power. Oh, and happy belated Halloween.